All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Microsoft 365 Pulse. We have the whole team here. So welcome to the madness. We have a week of updates, and so we have a lot of updates, but a lot of them we were talking about before the show can be grouped into one big update where we say, hey, this updated, so go check it out if you're interested. So I'm going to pass to Adam. I hardly ever pass to our buddy Adam first, but some of these are geeky nerdy, and he is our resident geeky nerd. So I'm going to let him group us off and lead off with one of the first ones, and then we'll start. So we're starting again, just an update. In development means it's in the sausage factory. Microsoft is making it behind the scenes. Rolling out means it has started the rollout process, typically to the commercial cloud, unless otherwise stated. And rolling out happens in phases. It's going to start with like 10% and then go to 40%, 70%, and everybody. It can be in the rolling out phase for a little bit of time or a lot of time. So rolling out could mean anything. It could show up in your tenant. It could not show up in your tenant for a while. You just kind of got to hang out there. It'll usually show up in the message center when it's coming, depending on the change. Launched means it should be there in your tenant. You should see it. If it's not in your tenant, it's going to be there any day now, literally. And then canceled typically means, hey, I've rolled into another feature, or in some cases, hey, Microsoft decided this was a bad idea, or I'm not doing it, or hey, Microsoft got rid of this feature. And so those are our different categories for where we're at. So we'll start with our in development phases. So take it away, Adam.
Yeah, so I'll do two grouped updates real quick to just cover a whole bunch of the nerdy stuff. They have a whole bunch of new graph commands coming out. So there's stuff for Teams, for SharePoint, for files, for calendars. If you're interested, if you're a dev or your company has custom developed apps that do that, there is some cool stuff that's been lacking in the graph that's coming out with new commands. So again, I'm not going to read them all out, but just know that there's a whole bunch of cool commands coming through. They're going to be updated and make a dev's life a little bit easier. And the second one is they're working pretty hard to get latency improvements for a whole bunch of different reasons for Windows Virtual Desktop. So this is mostly people that you're seeing in Europe and Southeast Asia. So the UK, France, Germany, Norway, Korea, South Africa, United Arab Emirates, a whole bunch of those like that. So where you see people that have the option to consume Windows Virtual Desktop, they're doing stuff to make that quicker and more reliable for them. So again, keep in mind this is in development. This doesn't mean you'll see the improvement tomorrow, but they've identified that that's something they want to improve on. And yeah, so both of those are we're going to group, but that's coming.
Very cool stuff. All right, well, I've got one that I think is uber cool. That's the SharePoint Auto News Digest. Yes. And so this is one where the news engine is going to automatically send an automated email to people in the company about the latest news posts that they have not yet read. So if there's a bunch of SharePoint sites that I have access to, communication sites, and maybe news has come out, but I haven't read it or I haven't seen it, it's going to put together a digest for me. And a digest is a really great way to think of it like the automatic magic newsletter that comes together. It's going to be that reminder that says, hey guys, you didn't read me yet. Here's the things you should be reading. It's a really great way to get that information out to people. If it's doing it automatically, then you don't have to worry as much about the news that's coming in. Sometimes people just get busy. They're maybe not in all the places they should be, out of sight, out of mind. So this would be a great reminder for them to get it, but it also won't be noise for people who have read it. So I'm excited to see where they come with this one. And then people can also unsubscribe if they need to. So I'm excited to see where this one's coming. So I think that's a good one to have in development. I think the news team has done a really great job with how they've handled those digests. So I think this will just be another delighter that they add to the list of things that they do.
Very cool.
How about you, Tamara? What do you see in development that tickles your fancy?
One of the things that I really got excited about was automated transcript services for video and audio files in SharePoint and OneDrive. So now, just like in Stream, it'll do a transcription of the video or audio file that you've uploaded. This will make it easier to search also for the video and what's inside of the video. And it also just helps us get a little bit closer to being ADA compliant. So it helps with that. So I'm excited about that.
Yes.
So I guess this means it's my turn now, huh?
It is your turn.
It is my turn. Okay, I'm going to do a couple for OneDrive, and then I'm going to scroll down a little bit on the list here and hit a couple SharePoint ones. There's two in OneDrive. One is the recommended view on the web and updates to recent view on the webs. So the recommended view is a new one that's coming out, and that will basically use the graph and intelligent machine learning and things to show you, hey, here's some files that I recommend you look at based on the people you work with, based on what you've been reading, stuff like that. I think that's going to help to have people keep up with what's going on in areas that they may just be overwhelmed and they didn't have a chance to go out and find this document, or they couldn't go find it because they didn't even know it existed. This gets back to that whole concept of content finding you, which I think is an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And the whole machine learning helps that along. And then in the recent view that you have in OneDrive, they're adding a couple columns for activity and sharing. So it just gives you a better idea of, without having to go in and look up properties and stuff like that, at the view level, you can see where things have been shared, what's been happening with it, who's been reading it, stuff like that. The other one I wanted to jump down to is for lists and libraries. They've done some cool stuff with Quick Edit, and Quick Edit, it seemed like it was kind of a poor stepchild there for a while, in the fact that a lot of people like using it because they don't have to go in and look at the panel and do everything and then save it and go to the next one. But there were a lot of things you couldn't do with Quick Edit, which you would have liked to have been able to do. So one, they're taking the sticky column headers concept to OneNote now, or OneNote, gosh, Quick Edit, to where as you scroll horizontally across, the far left-hand column is going to remain in place. So that's usually your column that tells you what the title is or something like that. So you don't lose, oh, was it the second, the third item, whatever. You're going to have that reference, much like you have sticky columns across the top to figure out what column of data you're looking at. Fixed row height in Quick Edit. So you're not going to have it bumping around going, oh, this is wide. Nope, this isn't wide. You can get a consistent height across everything. I think that'll help, because if you're scrolling through and you've got one page that's got 10 items and another one that's got 4, that can get kind of hard to figure out exactly where you're going. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then updated Quick Edit row selections. So the way they explain this is, you'll see an updated way for selecting single or multiple items in a list or files in a library. This section update supports existing copy, paste, and drag to fill, applicable to multiple rows when selecting or when using shift selection. This too also improves navigation, interacting with the list or library via keystrokes. So again, it's making Quick Edit kind of be an maybe first option alternative now, especially the fact that you're going to be able to create new views that launch automatically into Quick Edit instead of you having to always go into Quick Edit manually to get there. So I think this is really cool, and I think it kind of ties into some of the stuff that they're doing with the whole Microsoft list concept too. So good stuff.
There was a cool one that both Jen and I'm sure, are going to be excited about. I might have even jumped the gun a little bit.
Love it.
But the funny thing is, Jen and I have actually been talking about this week at work, independent of that. And I don't know if you noticed, Jen, the date that we got internally this week talking with our resources is different from what's on the roadmap. But anyways, new advanced e-discovery solutions is coming for GCC High. GCC and the DoD cloud. So that's a lot of our customers, which is why me, Tamara, and Jen care so much about this one. But this is one of the things that I've actively talked about probably 5 times in the last month. So it's one of the things that I know a lot of customers in the Gov clouds are kind of itching for. If you know the difference between e-discovery and advanced e-discovery is the one that's custodian driven. So rather than just going through and searching for like just keywords, you can say, oh, well, I'm concerned about mail for Jack. and I want to go through and see all the stuff related to Jack and files related to Jack, which is oftentimes how searches are conducted in eDiscovery. It's, oh, well, person's left or person's done something they shouldn't have done. So you want to see all the stuff related to them. So it's a little bit more intelligent or common driven way to search. There's also some great communication options in it. You have the ability to redact files in it. There's even some machine learning built in around lawyer client privilege or attorney client privilege and stuff like that. So there's some really cool stuff in advanced eDiscovery that's just flat out not available in the glove clouds right now. So that is set to come out Q4 of this year, according to the roadmap. So I know that's one that that the three of us are desperately waiting to have come out. So cool to see it actually land on the roadmap to be official. All the updates we were getting were non-official and ones that we couldn't necessarily directly talk about. So the fact that it's actually now on the roadmap is cool to see.
I'm
Yes,
feeling
very
like
nice.
such a second-class citizen with the three of us are really excited about this. Tom doesn't
That's just because
care.
you don't have to worry about
Tom, you already
the
have
delayed
it.
stuff.
You're
Yeah,
excited
about
about
to say.
us getting something
Yes,
after
I am
you,
very
and you
excited.
feel bad about it?
Prior to me working with all the GovCloud users, I didn't realize how annoying it can be when
Yes.
you go into your demo tenant and everything's there and everything works and you're like, all right, it's gonna come out in like 2 years. Good luck, you know?
Well, and being related to the woman that's in the upper right corner here in the screen, I hear about the fact that GCC doesn't get all the whistles and bells. So yeah, I do feel it on a number of levels here. So yeah.
The love is delayed for government cloud.
Yes, 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 yes.
So
Anyway.
one of the things that I thought was interesting is that Yammer communities are now available in the Teams mobile app, or that's in development. So really, Microsoft is really focusing on making Teams that one-stop shop, that hub that brings everything together. And I just think that them rolling in Yammer with Teams is really pointing in that same direction.
So I'm gonna get technically nerdy for a second.
Go for it.
For the longest time, and I think this is still the way, when you created a team, you had to choose between Exchange and Yammer. A team could not have Exchange integration or
Really?
Yammer integration. It was one of the two, yes. You either had to have a mailbox or had to have Yammer network integration.
But with new Yammer, I think it's different, right?
Yeah, I don't know. The last
Yeah.
time I went through and saw, it was literally one or the other. I would think potentially there is a difference now when you're going through and looking at it, because I couldn't see how they bring that to because it was one of those things that was like, oh yeah, you can choose Exchange or Yammer, and like 99.9% of people chose Exchange because like
Right.
everyone still uses email. So I'll be interested to see that. It'll probably be something I need to research a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think it all changed
there.
when they launched the new Yammer, which was like just a couple of months ago, even.
Something
Really.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really recent because Corey was in the middle of doing a launch and they actually held off a week or
wow.
two because it was like, okay, well, the new Yammer is coming to our tenant here, so why don't we wait before we push anything out? So yeah, good stuff. All right, well, coming on down to the rolling out.
Wait.
Oh, is there another one? Okay,
There's
go for it.
actually there's a couple things that I see here that I also like. One is on the Microsoft Teams. They're making a change to queuing up messages when you're offline on Teams. So it used to be, or at least what my experience has been, is that if you're having a network issue and you're not connected at the time, it'll sit there and say sending. Sorry, you didn't make it. You want to retry? And this happens continually. Well, now what it will do is it will actually queue up the message. And once the connection is reestablished, it will attempt to send. But if it stays in that unsent state for more than 24 hours, then you'll get the notice of the failure. So I think that's nice in the fact that you don't have to keep checking for the red, circles saying you want to retry this or something like that. It's going to give you more of a, hey, I went to send it, I'm not connected, I get reconnected, it does send. So I think that's cool. Also saw that Microsoft Lists has a couple call outs here. One is the new integrate drop-down list that they're going to have. And that's going to be home for features that extend list experiences, such as Power Apps, Power Automate. Instead of those being separate entries, those will now fall into the integrate dropdown. So I think that's cool as they add additional things, which I'm sure they will. Plus, in Quick Edit for Microsoft Lists, they are introducing a number of new and refined user interface updates. So you'll see new grid lines, an improved on hover experience when using your mouse, themed color bars on the side, including error messaging, a create new item button at the top, or I'm sorry, at the bottom of Quick Edit for creating new items in line, and updated column header drop downs. So again, it's one thing that they're saying we're doing this for Microsoft Lists, but I think a lot of the stuff that happens with List, you're going to end up seeing it part and parcel of the SharePoint list too. So I think that anything that they're doing with Microsoft Lists bodes well for some of the list experience you're going to have, even if you're not using lists. I'm just using SharePoint. Well, yeah, you're using lists and you're going to probably see a lot of this stuff. So I think that's good too. And with that, I'm done with development.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had covered those when you did the quick edit. So my mistake. I'm glad you stopped me.
I stopped because I wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to chime in, Jennifer.
Oh, well, thank you, Tom. All right, so moving to rolling out. The first one that I really like is the Outlook for Windows, the permission for sharing links. It's going to be great because the email message is going to include a clickable link with the document name. And if you're trying to share it with people who don't have access, it's going to be nice and red and say, hey, Dodo, you're trying to share this with people who don't have access. Would you like to fix this? As someone who is trying very hard to share links with people all the time instead of sending attachments, this is very helpful. This is going to be a great trigger for people to change behavior. So I'm super excited about this. Make it super easy for me and make it easy for users to learn. So if it's bright red, it tells you to fix something. So it's going to help drive really great behavior. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see that change coming, quite honestly. So I'll pass it to Tamara for the next one, or for anyone, whatever interests you.
Sure. I'm interested in the Outlook for Android, the company add-in for third-party online meetings. So Microsoft is really kind of becoming agnostic, where it's letting you add Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, and whatever the heck Blue Jeans is, and choose that provider to be their preferred online meeting provider. So that was exciting. I didn't know Microsoft's like, hey, everybody, come on board. But there they are.
Yeah. I'll go with one that's not nerdy, and then let Adam clean up any nerdiness that might be in the whole rolling out column. This is one that is going to make our user base so freaking happy. And that is, you'll be able to schedule a page or news post to be published at a specific date and time.
Yes.
Oh my God, we had customized code that did that in our SharePoint 2010 environment. It was like, well, can we call for things to be published at a certain time? Like, no. Where now you're going to have the ability to do that. I know that somebody actually posted in Twitter today and said, hey, scheduled posts is here. And I looked and it's not in our client yet. But yeah, that is going to be really popular, I think.
That was really missing from the news posts.
Yes, very much so. So cool.
Yeah, I don't have too much here. The one thing I'll call out, and I know we've talked about it multiple times, but it's just worth mentioning. I think this is the first time we've seen it now and roll it out. Acronym answers for search are coming to SharePoint and Office.com as a whole. So maybe your company only ever types out the statement of work due to naming conventions of files or something, but obviously everyone refers to it as the SAL when you talk to them. That type of thing should be picked up a little bit easier when you're going through and searching for stuff, which I think this is just a quality of life improvement that would be cool for people to get, that makes the search a little bit more intelligent. So we've talked about this in the past, but it's now officially moved to rolling out, which is just nice to see.
Yeah. So one that I love, I actually added it to the Planet Passport intranet that we're building. Little secret, if you're a Planet listener, you know I'm working on a secret intranet. But this is the Save for Later web part. So I really like this. If you're on a page or with a document or something inside of SharePoint, you can click Save for Later, and now there's a web part, and it will let you show in a nice format, just an easy way to get back to the things that are important to you or that you like, little bookmarks. So I like that web part. Works great. Have it on a page now. So super cool. So that is rolling out. It's just fun to see all of the new little web parts just bouncing into a page near you soon.
There's one more thing that's in rolling out, which kind of hits close to home for me because we're in the process of trying to get rid of InfoPath and go more with default forms or start going to Power Automate. But your default form that you have for SharePoint list items, you're now going to have the ability to have conditional show or hide columns.
Yes, and the angels sing when you do it.
Yes, they do.
The glitter starts flying. Yes.
Rainbows.
Yes. The fact that you're not just throwing a panel of all the fields that are possible, or I take out the fields that are possible, but what about when I only want to show this field?
How many semicolons does it take to do it? That is right, with 0 semicolons.
First time I ever saw you speak, Jen, I remember you were like, "Hi there, I'm allergic to semicolons. This is why my session will have none." And I'm going, God, I found my tribe. This is awesome. But yeah, I think that's going to be really nice because while that won't allow us to obviously migrate all our InfoPath forms because we have business logic and stuff like that, a lot of the ones where we're using InfoPath because we had to show and hide certain things, this now makes using that a very real possibility, in addition to the fact that coming up here soon, you're going to have the ability to show a wider, I do that and my hand disappears. Hi, hand, no hand. You're going to have the opportunity to do a wider display instead of just that little panel. So you may be able to have something that's more landscape mode. And if you can then show like 3 or 4 columns across, and you can have certain fields that don't show up unless this other field gets filled in, you're starting to get pretty close to having real form functionality without having to go into a whole Power Automate Canvas app thing like
Especially
that.
when it's just simple stuff. Sometimes you're not hiding it for a security reason, and you're not hiding it for a logic or business reason. You're hiding it to make it easy to fill out the dang form. You're hiding it to stop questions. You're hiding it so that you don't have to explain why you're tracking it. You're just hiding it because it's easier to hide it. So that's why this is a good thing, you know. So I'm super excited. Excited about this. When it takes longer to explain to someone what Power Apps is than it takes to teach them to hide a column, that is when you will use this feature. Yeah, I like that. So, well, cool. Other things in this category before we move on. I don't want to jump too quick.
I thought it was interesting that in Outlook for iOS and Outlook for Android, it's now going to default to online meetings. So it'll default to a Teams meeting or a Skype for Business
Finally.
And there's a toggle there. So if you don't want it to be an online meeting, you don't have to have it be an online meeting. But it'll be nice because it'll just default to it. You've already got it. And in this time of COVID, it just makes more sense.
Yeah, it really does. Yep. It's a good change.
All right. With the seconds of silence, I'm going to assume we're going to launch now.
Go for it.
All right. So launching here, I think we can jump right in. There seems to be a lot of nerdy stuff in launch, so I'm going to let Adam go first in our launch category.
I'm going to try not to take too many from them, but there are a couple really cool ones in there that I think are worth calling out. One of the things going through and looking of that I saw was me like, oh, hey, that's cool. That's something people would like. Whenever you go through and look at the ability of the things that you have, this is one that hits true to me that if you've ever worked with Microsoft support, you're going to love. They've been reworking admin centers and stuff like that. When you have to put in a service request to Microsoft, because we all know there's times where it's, well, this should be working, it's just not. It's like, every Google answer you find points out that should be going there. You now have the ability to select the product or service that is impacted whenever you go through and create the ticket. And what hypothetically this should do for you is get you to the right people that can help you quicker. We all love Microsoft. They are trying a very challenging thing by having resources available to help 24/7 for people that could be impacted by issues. But you also probably kind of know it's a roll of the dice if you're going to get a good tech or not whenever you open up a support request. Having the ability to go through and be like, no, this is Teams that's causing the problem, or no, this is, a group, or this is, SharePoint, or this is Exchange, hopefully gets you a little bit more targeted help instead of that generic frontline, gives you a little bit more SME focused. And so I personally, as someone who oftentimes handles escalations to Microsoft for our customers, am really happy to see this going through and coming out. I think it's something that's going to be a quality of life improvement for most people. So I was happy to see that go in there.
I'm gonna kind of be a little nerdy-ish here and maybe encroach a little bit on Adam's area.
No. By all means, it's a big boat. We're very welcoming.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back in the corner of the boat, though. The health service dashboard updates, email notifications. I set this one this morning as soon as I saw this. And so usually when you go to the dashboard, you'll have the little service health panel, and you go there and you have to look and see what's going on. But during the day, you're not probably spending a whole lot of time out there. Well, now you can go out to preferences and say, pick one or two email addresses that I want to be notified on, and then it gives you a whole list of like everything in the portfolio that you can check or uncheck in terms of do you want to be notified. So in this particular case, just because I like to go overboard with the notifications and trim back, anything that now goes into advisory, incident, stuff like that, I'm going to get an email when that goes live on the service health board. I'm really looking forward to that because a lot of times you're going, I don't know why I can't find stuff in search. What's going on? And then finally you think, oh, maybe I should go check the service health, and you find out there's been an incident or advisory for the last, 45 minutes or something. This is going to make it a lot quicker to be notified about those things.
That's a good one. So one that I really like is site owners can associate their sites with the SharePoint hub. Now, this is a good one because there are different roles inside of SharePoint. You have the site owner and the site administrator. Think site owner is I'm the business owner. I own the site. This is my jam. This is what I own. But site administrator means I change all the buttons and I configure it and I make it do things. Just because I can make it do things doesn't mean I know anything about the content that's in it or who should be in it. And just because I know about the content and knows who should be in it doesn't mean I know anything about how the button should be configured. But just because I know how the button should be configured doesn't mean I know who should be in it. So the ability for us to let the owners of the site who own the data and own that allow people to join the hubs is a good segregation of content because there are many different agencies and organizations that have that. You have the person who's the button pusher and the puller, and they know everything there is to know about SharePoint. And then you have the business owner people, and you really do want that segregation. So just making that easier helps keep that ownership of the data and making sure the right people have the right access to things. So excited to see that change launching. I think it's going to add some consistency there. So very happy to see that.
So I have two really quick ones I'll cover. Tamara, sorry if I hopped the gun. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is open file links directly in Office desktop apps. So now users have the option to open Office Cloud File links in the Office desktop app. So when you open a file link from Word or Excel or PowerPoint or Outlook desktop apps, you can then choose the file to open directly in the appropriate Office app instead of in the browser.
Yeah. The angels also sing. When this one happens.
I always want to open it up in the desktop app because there's so much more functionality there. Granted, Microsoft is rolling more functionality into the browser apps, but still I want that full fidelity editing experience.
Right. If I'm sitting at my desk working on my desktop, I want to use my desktop clients. If I'm on a bus, okay, maybe I want to
Right.
read it on my mobile app on the web or something, but not, I'm with you. The angels sing when that one happens. I'm like, fine.
Tamara, I'm going to have to call Amazon to get more glitter because I just ran out with the two ones that we had here,
The angels sing a lot in my office during this
Okay,
show,
good,
if you guys haven't
good.
noticed.
Adam,
Go ahead.
what were you going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have two real quick, and don't worry, mine are again always nerdy. So like, no one was gonna say mine, so it was fine. One of them that is small, but I think kind of cool. They launched a Linux client for Teams, and this seems kind of small and unnecessary, but for certain use cases. So Jen and I used to work at Rackspace. There was 6,500 to 8,000 people at Rackspace, depending on what time you were employed there and stuff like that. Well, a good core bit of them literally were Linux engineers that ran Linux on their desktop clients at work. And so I did a lot with Rackspace's internal IT department of going through developing policies. And when we started rolling out onto Office 365, launching into Teams would have always been an issue for them because literally there would have been a segment of their workforce that they would have never been able to go through and leverage and get onto Teams to collaborate with others. So why this is small, and I'm sure that's probably like 2% of the user base that will ever use something like this, it really is giving the ability for companies like Rackspace that are maybe large IT companies that just have those people that actually literally sit on Linux machines whenever they're going through and doing it, the option to join. So that was kind of cool. And the other one I'm going to mention that I think kind of folds into two things here, one that's not technically listed in the roadmap. So Microsoft has been going through and rebranding a whole bunch of stuff, Microsoft 365 and some of the stuff of going through and doing on that. But one of the things that they did is they renamed the Office Pro Plus deployment, which is the suite of Office products that you download, to Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise. Well, in line of doing that, one of the things that they're doing for Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise, which again, if you're keeping up, is basically just Office Pro Plus, is new tenants will by default come up on the current channel. So you've heard us talk about the different channel releases and how that works. I'm not going to go too into that right now, but just know if you're creating a new tenant, by default, you're now coming on into the current channel. They changed the timelines of when stuff is released for that too. So just be aware that that's coming through, and that's a new change that you'll see.
Yep. One other admin-y thing for Microsoft Teams is the background effects. Administrators now have the ability to go in and control that. So they can say no, or they can say blur only, or they can say, here are the 4 files you can choose, or they can say yes or no, or they can have the control. So that is something that is coming out. So they've got the power now. So
plus users now have the ability to upload their own backgrounds without having to use the hack to go into the
if allowed by their administrators.
Correct. But there's no more of like, well, how do I do it? Well, can you go to your user? What's that? No, okay, you're not going to get to do it. I'm not even going to go there.
Yep.
There are 2 that I've seen that I would like to bring up in the launch category. One, this has always been kind of the bane of my existence, and I'm glad to see they're fixing it. You're now going to be able to edit metadata from within the document library and list view web parts. Used to be people were like, well, I don't have the ability to do X, Y, Z. Well, it's because you're not in the library. Well, yeah, I'm at this page and the library's right there. No, you're in a web part for the library. Well, but I'm in the library. No, you're not in the library. Click see all, go to the library. This is going to allow you to start doing a lot of work from within the web part version of it. So I think there's going to be less confusion over, am I in the library? Am I on a web part on a page that's showing content but not in? I think that's cool. And one other one that I did spark one tip, or a 1-minute Office Magic tip recently, version history on the desktop. Now, go ahead. We got it. We got angels that are going to sing with this one.
Angels are singing.
They are cranking out. They're laying down the beat, man. So now, if you do like File Explorer, if you're a Windows person, and you right-click on a file, you're going to see the option to see previous versions. And when you click on that, it's going to pop up and go, "Hey, here are all the versions you have. Do you want to view one of the prior versions? Do you want to replace it?" this is like really cool, because to me, that was always one of those things that, well, one of the reasons you don't want to store it in a file share is because you're really not going to get that whole versioning thing. Well, now if you're using OneDrive and you're seeing the whole, file explorer type thing, the interface that you're used to seeing now gives you that versioning aspect. I think that is like really cool. I don't want to call it a game changer, but yeah, it really does change the way people think about that.
Yep. I think the last one I have, and then I'm sure there might be others for other people, but the last one I had in the launch category was the SharePoint integrations with Power Automate and Power Apps are launched in the GCC High tenants. So this is another one that, hallelujah, we have been waiting, and then we waited a little bit longer, and then we knew they were coming in September. And then when they would tell me they were coming in September, I would be like, that is awesome. What year? That used to be my response when they told me it was September. And so it turns out it was, September of 2020 and a little bit before September. So there we go. So they're launched out in GCC and GCC High. And so there we go. So that's exciting there. So the SharePoint integrations there. So that's exciting. So does anyone else have anything in the launched categories?
I'm done.
The only other thing is that now there are website tabs and Teams in GCC High. So now in Teams, we can have links to different websites. So I think that's good. Again, Microsoft really trying to make Teams that one-stop shop, that hub of activity.
Cool.
Cool. All right. And so now we're going into canceled. Now, to be quite honest, the canceled list looks long, but I'm not even going to touch on a couple of them because they are the same things that have been there. So when it hits canceled, it seems to stay in the canceled bucket for a while. So the risky IP address and the Azure AD control access, we're going to kind of skip over those. Those have been 3 weeks in the making. We've talked about those again and again. The Teams sharing integration with OneDrive, don't even have to worry about that because it says it's included in a different roadmap ID. So then we're like, okay, we're just cleaning up the roadmap. Some other things, there's some service health dashboard updates with language translations. They were doing some things where they could, on the service health dashboard, allow you to see some things in different languages all at once. They seem to have making some changes in how they're doing that. They're removing that. They've canceled that feature from the roadmap. I trust that they're figuring out how to go about that differently. Maybe they decided they didn't need that feature or they're going to be doing it differently, but that one's coming out. And then the one, share and co-author documents with LinkedIn connections directly from OneDrive, SharePoint, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. This one, they're canceling. I'm not totally surprised about this one, that it's getting canceled. It could just be, this is an external sharing solution, right? So and it was trying to make LinkedIn a first level sharing experience. And so it sounds like for whatever reasons, they're rethinking this feature. So I'm sure we will hear more. I haven't heard why they're rethinking it. I don't know if it's a technical reason or a other reason, but it's getting rethought. So that one is getting pulled. And then finally, Outlook for iOS suggested inferred locations. Outlook will automatically suggest locations for reoccurring events on your calendar so you can access directions or receive time to leave reminders. That's getting pulled. So that probably means they couldn't do it effectively without being annoying. So that's getting pulled as well. So there we go. Which also is not a make it or break it feature. That's kind of a nice to have, but it's also a nice to have that if you do it well, it's nice. And if you do it wrong, it makes you angry. So I'm fine if they pull that. If you can't do it perfect, don't do it. So those are canceled. Nothing that we need to cry about or worry about at this point, I think. So does anybody else have anything for that one that they want to chat through?
Nope.
They had a couple Azure AD canceled ones, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Are they different than the ones we talked about before?
No, but I was just going to point out, I thought one of the things that was interesting, one of the first ones, the conditional access managed browser one, that canceled date or the date that it had associated with the roadmap was Q1 of 2018. So
Oh yeah, I
it was
saw
like
that. That was
2.5 years ago, but yeah.
That means they tried to do it for a long time and
Yeah,
then changed their
I just
minds.
thought it was interesting. I was like, wow.
Or it's one of those things like, hey Bob, do you know anything about that? I don't know anything about this. You know anything about that? Let's just cancel it. That won't make any difference.
I think that's when Sally was here. Yeah, let's cancel it.
We didn't like Sally to begin with.
Too funny. Alrighty. Well, we will have another show next week. I believe we will do our recording again next Thursday, probably in the afternoon. So look for a show next Thursday, and I think we'll have a lot of really, really good things to cover. So look for us there, and we will talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.